Hello everyone, my name is Jeffrey Webb. I am an Olympian skier. I represented Malaysia at the 2018 Winter Olympics and the 2017 Asian Winter Games. So today I'm just going to be talking about my journey skiing and how I got to the Olympics. So some of you might be thinking, okay, Jeffrey, what is skiing exactly? So, not water skiing, it's something different. I do snow skiing. I do alpine skiing specifically. And so skiing has different disciplines, different sports. You know, you have skiing where people do tricks. You have skiing where people do cross-country skiing. But I do alpine skiing, which is, you ski down a mountain, but I'll have a course set where I have to maneuver through. And so this course that you go through, you get timed, and you use that time to compare yourself to other people, and that's how you compete. And so skiing is a very complex sport because there's a lot of skill involved. You have to have good technique, but then you also have to be very physical too, in very good physical shape. So some people have one or the other. If you're really good, you have both. So that's skiing. Skiing also has a point system. So similar to how in golf you'll have a handicap, except in skiing, it's calculated by how well you do at a race and how well other people did and how good they are in general, compared to their other races. So you might win a race in the middle of nowhere and not do as well as if you took 50th at the Olympics or something like that, because it's more competitive. So it's a little different, unique in that sense. So hopefully now you kind of have a rough idea of what I kind of do and what skiing is. And so let me back up a bit and start from the beginning. So I started skiing at around 5 years old. Most people start around that age, 3 to 5 years old. There's only so much you can learn at 2 years old. So I started at 5. But skiing wasn't originally the sport that I picked. The first sport I actually did was karate. And karate wasn't the sport that I did, that I really enjoyed. I did skiing and karate at the same time for about a year or two. And so I started skiing because while doing karate and not really enjoying it, my parents exposed me to another activity. So they took me to the ski resort nearby. In this ski resort, I remember seeing all the kids and everyone skiing down, and I thought, wow, that looks really fun. Let me try that. And so I really enjoyed it. I got exposed to it, and then I started to do lots of lessons and skiing around with my friends and family for a while. And so I would be doing this for the next year or two. I would ski a lot after school. I would ski on the weekends and do a little bit of karate here and there. But after a little while, I made the shift from karate to really focusing on my skiing, because the karate I did was a little different than other karates. You know how you get normal belts, but mine had where they had these like stripes. You would get in between belts, so you'd have a white belt, yellow belt, but in between there'd be a white belt with a black stripe, I think, a white belt with a yellow stripe. And so I remember I got white belt with one of the stripes, and I remember thinking, oh, well, I didn't get a yellow belt. This isn't fun. And so I stopped, I didn't really enjoy doing it. I didn't really like karate. It was a chore after school. And so I started focusing on skiing, let's just go skiing all the time. And so I started to ski and really enjoy it. And it wasn't until I was about 8 years old, that's when I really started to actually compete. And so at 8 years old, my parents took me to the same mountain that I was skiing at originally. And there they have a ski team, a local club. And over the holidays, so over New Year, they usually have like a week or 2 long camp, clinic type thing. And so at this clinic, camp, I just did it for fun. I participated, and it was kind of, you get a good feel for what they do in this training. And so I did it. And I remember down in the parking lot at the end of the camp, one of the coaches approached my parents and said, Jeffrey has some potential. Why doesn't he sign up for the ski team and, go from there? And so my parents and everyone were talking about it. But at the time, the 8-year-old me didn't really understand the complexity of everything that was going on. And so I just remember thinking that, for the past week, I've been seeing everyone else on the ski team with these nice red quilted jackets that they had. And I remember asking the coach, I said, and my parents, that if I get one of those jackets, then yeah, sure, I'll join, I'll compete, because I just wanted a jacket. And so that's how it started. I got the red jacket and the red quilted jacket, and it would go from there, and that's how I would go on to compete and train, because of the red jacket. And so over the next few years, I would compete and train. But it was about 15, 16 years old that it really started to pick up the competitiveness and the amount of travel that I would have to do to compete. And so at this point, at 16 years old, usually that's when you are old enough to compete internationally. They have that's the level. That's when you start to have the points that I was talking about earlier. At this point, this is when you can compare yourself to people in other countries and compete with other people. And so at this time, I'm at the U.S. training, because there's obviously no snow and skiing in Malaysia. So here I am in the U.S. training at the time, and at this competition, there were multiple competitions. I had a competition that was like the regional championship, so like half of the United States on the western side, and that was my first real higher competitive race. And I remember thinking that some of these guys are really good. And so it was kind of a wake-up call into the amount of work that I needed to put into it. Because up to this point, I was just doing it for fun. I wasn't really, I was competing and being competitive, but it wasn't until this point that you really kind of had an awakening and seeing, okay, these other people are really good too. And so that's when I started to kind of pick up the intensity. And so as time progressed, I would train more and hit more of these races like that championship type event. And eventually, I made my way to the Asian Winter Games. And that was the year before the Winter Olympics. And that was the first moment that it really hit me, thinking, okay, how far am I taking the skiing? Where am I going with this? And so at this point, the Asian Winter Games compared to the Olympics, it's not as competitive, but it did have an opening ceremony, an athlete village, lots of countries. So it was kind of a mini Olympics. And so at this time, I remember thinking that, wow, the Winter Olympics is next year. Will I, is this something that maybe I could do? I didn't know at the time. And so shortly after the Asian Winter Games, I'm thinking it'd be really neat and fun to go to the Winter Olympics. And let's see if I'm good enough. And I saw that, yes, I was good enough. And it didn't really hit me just seeing that I qualified and going. Even when I was at the Winter Olympics and thinking that I'm here, it didn't really hit me until I started my event at the Olympics. So I'm standing at the top of this mountain in the start gate, way up in the mountain, and I'm looking out of the start, and I look down the mountain, and way off in the distance at the bottom of the mountain, the hill, I can see the finish line with all the people down there and the cameras. And that's when I realized, okay, this is real. I'm actually at the Olympics. Because this whole time, it was kind of just, I was still this kid, the kid that wanted that red jacket at 8 years old, that I was just skiing for fun and trying to do the best that I can, but I was having fun along the way, because this is something that I just enjoyed doing. It was never, at 8-year-old me in the parking lot wanting that red jacket, never thought that, okay, I'm going to the Olympics. I never thought that. I was just thinking about, you know, things one at a time. Okay, improving myself. Oh, I want this jacket, that type of thing. And so seeing myself just over time progress, and here I am at the gate, at the start, about to go down and compete here at the Olympics. I thought, wow, that's when my heart started beating fast and the pressure started to build on me. But then I remember thinking that, I'm here doing this for myself, and, while there's other people counting on me, at the same time, I'm here just to improve myself and just do the best that I know that I can do. And so I had to try and, focus that out, kind of, zone out and focus just on that and just do the best that I can do. And that's what I did at the Olympics, and that's what I tried. And so obviously along the way going to the Olympics, there were some hardships too. I suffered from lots of injuries and things like that. I had back issues. There was a time when I crashed, hurt my back, and for quite a while I couldn't really walk super well. I remember when I went back to school, I would be crawling out of the desks, out of the chair in my class because, my back was in so much pain. Because, if you hurt your arm, you don't have to use it, but your back, you use your back for everything, waking up in the morning, walking. So something like skiing, you're really using your back, and that was terrible. But eventually I worked my way through it. And there were times when I wanted to quit, thinking, is it worth it? At the same time that's going on, I also had to balance school. I would miss weeks of school at a time to go and compete. And so, I remember thinking quite a few times that, is this something that I want to do, or should I just stop? And and another injury I had was at the time when I was younger, I had braces, and I remember I crashed, and the braces got stuck to the front of my lips, and I had to go to the emergency room, and that wasn't very fun. And so all of these injuries and other issues like with school made me think, is this something that I want to be doing? But I remember thinking that I'm doing this for myself, and thinking about, I've enjoyed the journey up to this point. I might as well take it farther and see where it takes me. And so with that mentality and that mindset, I just kept competing and kept going with the skiing, and that's how eventually I ended up at the Olympics. And at this time of speaking to all of you, I'm still preparing for the upcoming Winter Olympics next year in Beijing. And so the idea that you can kind of take away from this up to this point is that I just enjoyed what I was doing. I never thought that I was going to end up at the Olympics. I was just working hard for myself and working to better myself, and doing that. While doing that, I'm participating in something that I enjoy, and I had the passion for working hard in that specific thing because I just loved it. The inner kid in me loved skiing, and so I just wanted to get better and better at it and spend more time doing it. And so an idea that you can kind of think about in this sense is, let me use the example of, say life is kind of like a train, okay? And so this train, you can say that I started off on the karate train. And so this karate train, a lot of people know the end goal. Okay, the end is this black belt, the next belt and everything. And I knew what it was. The end is getting a black belt or something. And I didn't want that. And so I eventually, got off at, say, the next stop. And this next stop, I changed trains into skiing. Now I'm on the ski train. I like this ski train, but I don't know where it's ending, but I never got off. I stayed on it on all the, stops along the way, and I kept going. And that's not to say in the end of the line happens to be the Olympics, and it's still going, another Olympics, and then who knows what happens. But I won't be on this train forever. There'll be a time when I get off it and switch to something else in life. I'm still studying and other things like that. And so I think you can apply this idea into anything that you do. So say you have a job, you are doing a sport or playing an instrument, any of these things, you might start off doing that. But it's okay to, along the way, if it's not something you're passionate about, you can always switch to something that you enjoy. Because by switching and going on a new path, sometimes you might end up somewhere that you never thought about. And so, like I mentioned, you can end up here unintentionally along the line. You got off this train, now here you are in life. And so I think you should do what you want to do for yourself if it's something you're passionate about. Because if it was up to other people, I would still be doing karate. But because I didn't enjoy it and because I really liked skiing, I ended up going to the Olympics, and that's what ended up happening for me. So I think it's okay if you have all these, if, you might have a career that you're on this path right now, but that doesn't mean that that's the only path there is, and that doesn't mean that that is, the path you're stuck on. You can always get off, and step onto another train, and that train will take you somewhere else in life. If it's something that you enjoy and something that you're passionate about, it can potentially take you to the same destination. For me, it was the Olympics. For you, it might be something else. It might be, the Olympics in another sport, or, a better career path or something like that. And so, to sum up what I've been saying, I just think that you should do something that you enjoy. And if you enjoy it yourself, you will progress and work hard at that specific thing because you enjoy it and you love it and you want to better yourself at that specific thing. And so over time, new opportunities will come your way, and good things will come. And so with that said, I think this pretty much concludes my talk up to this point. I would just like to say that I hope you find your journey in life and that it takes you to great places, and that I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Thank you.